Did you have breakfast yet today? Hey, all, I'm Sarah, your host of What's on Your Plate podcast. Before we dig into today's episode, I want to talk about what's on your actual plate lately. If it's been anything less than homemade, from scratch with love deliciousness, I have just the thing to help you fix that. Listen, I get it. You're busy and probably feel like you don't have the time to make your own food. But what if I told you it's actually really easy, and once you have a few basic recipes down, it's actually faster than going to the grocery store and exceptionally better than any fast food version? Just take a look and see what you think. Plant Powered Mornings is a collection of easy to follow, wholesome breakfast recipes that will set the tone for a really feel good day. You can find the link in the show notes or with the link in my bio on Instagram. Stay connected, friends. Stay nourished. So I am really excited about my conversation today with my friend Sonya. So Sonya and I have known each other for a few years now, I feel like. We both found ourselves immersed in a online educational program that connected us beyond that program, which I'm thankful for. And we're here today talking about not staying in broken places, how finding herself in a personal and mental place she didn't love ignited something that reminded her to just breathe. Welcome, Sonya. I'm so excited you're here today.
Oh, thank you. That was a lovely way of summing things up. It's going to help keep me on track so that I'm not just going off on one of my tangents.
Well, if that happens, I'm sure it'll be a good tangent because the conversation is just always easy and flows so well. And I leave our conversations, I feel like, just better and having gained something that wasn't there before. So,
Oh, well, thank you. I feel the same way. It's why I follow your stuff and read what you got going on. I was like, oh, gosh, you made that look so easy. Oh, it is easy. That's how I can chop a cucumber better or whatever. I can add a little spice to my routine, to what I'm eating day in and day out. And
yeah.
so, yeah, I feel similar to
Well,
what you were
thank
saying.
you. I think we do a really good job of complicating things in life. And, when we spoke previously prior to hitting the record button today, you brought something to the conversation that I think we all really forget about. And that is just reminding ourselves to breathe.
Yeah, literally breathe. I mean,
So,
it is the most effective way of slowing down that anxiety train. And even if you're not on some sort of anxiety train, your mind's just looping around and just sort of jumping to all these different thoughts and things and feelings, and literally saying the word breathe makes you breathe and
right.
slow down the process. And it immediately puts you in back into feeling a sense of control, because that's what anxiety is feeling completely out of control. And with all the things that go on for all of us in life, we all have things. Certainly we'll talk about that a little bit, about my story and what I've been dealing with. But breath was the only thing I felt like I ultimately had control over.
Right.
And it just works every time. Every time. Breathe. Inhale. There's no special way. Hold it for 4, hold it for 6, blow out. Do it again. And if your mind starts to loop around again and you start going down that, breathe. It's the only way. It's the only way I've ever known in over 30 years of working with people in therapy. And it's the only way I've ever known to get myself to get present and feeling in control and helping other people. It's literally breathing.
Yeah. Well, let's step back for a second and talk about what caused you to remind yourself that that was something that you weren't really doing intentionally. When you talk about regaining control of yourself and putting things in perspective and getting anxieties under control, let's talk about how you found yourself in the place of needing to remind yourself to breathe in the first place.
Honestly, I've done it many, many times in my life with, of course, life is not always perfect and it's not always running smoothly and we all have our ups and downs. But the real catalyst was 2 years ago, getting diagnosed with breast cancer. And I had literally lost my mother 4 months prior to cancer. And I really like even now talking about it, you can hear me kind of like catch my breath because, and that's how it felt all the time. Like I couldn't catch my breath. Which of course primally invokes terror, right? Because you can't, it's primal, you want to breathe. And I, I literally, at sometimes that was my biggest accomplishment that day, was to remind myself to breathe. Just breathe. That was a huge accomplishment for me. Otherwise, I felt like I was literally just going to, I don't even know. Falling apart doesn't even seem like an adequate word to put it. Like I couldn't fall apart. I had kids, I had bills, I had life, and I didn't have my mom to cry with, to scream with, to, and it was very, very. It was just. It's the most overwhelming moment that I can possibly describe. It was just so beyond. You can almost hear me stutter just even recollecting it, like going back, and it was just so hard. And I, prior to the 2 years, I had already had like 8 surgeries from being disconnected from my body and being in an abusive relationship and just having life happen and making choices out of fear and all that. So I had had a decade. So like I always say, it was like cancer was like the cherry on top. It's just it just made me feel like everything was literally falling apart. And all I could do was breathe. And I literally, it was just like, I got this moment. Sometimes it was moment to moment, literally.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know what it's like to feel very connected to my body. And I'm grateful for those times that I honored my body and I listened to my body, because as I began to breathe less consciously, I didn't have to tell myself. I remembered I could go back to those moments where I had listened, and then I started listening more again. And I started listening a little bit more every day and making decisions. And then it was really dark. It was really dark for me for a long time because I didn't really realize how much I disconnected from my body, myself, and then I had to look at so much, and I grieved that. I grieved the I guess you would say the lack of connection I had with my own self, my own spirit, and how to get back, to trusting my body, trusting my intuition. Does that
At
make
what point what was the point where you just said enough was enough and you knew that you needed to find that reconnection? How did you know?
That's a great question. How did I know? I don't know how I know. I just said, fuck this. Fuck this. I'm not fucking dying. I'm not
Yeah.
fucking dying. And I'm sure as hell not leaving my kid or kids. My oldest had moved out. But I was, so what is my option? If I'm not going to die, you got to live. So I think it was just, I didn't know how. I just was like, no, I'm not fucking leaving yet. I'm not done yet. I'm not done. So that I know that may not really answer it directly, but that was my immediate reaction. It was not
Well,
to give.
mhm. Well, it was a really brave answer for sure, because I think that a lot of times we try to just fabricate something and find ourselves not knowing the answer when really it's just an inner knowing that we all have, that like, this is just not working for me anymore and
No,
something needs to change.
no, I think I had gotten so unbelievably uncomfortable in my own skin, and that the discomfort, staying in the discomfort was so uncomfortable that it was like I had to make a different choice for myself, because I forget how they say this. It's like the pain of whatever discomfort, fear, pain, whatever, of doing something new was far more appealing at that point than staying in the discomfort that I knew really well. Does that make sense? So the pain of something new, the discomfort or fear or anxiety about something new started to outweigh the discomfort of what I already knew. So I couldn't stay where I was anymore. I was like, I can't handle that anymore. I can handle that over here, which is going to get me out of this space. Because we do that. We don't realize we do this. We will stay in our comfort zone. People talk about this all the time with law of attraction and money points and health points. And I think there's a lot of truth to it. We unconsciously stay where we're the most comfortable. And when I find myself in those places of extreme discomfort, and usually what shocks me into a space of like, wait a minute, why am I doing this again? Is usually somebody outside me going, you did what? Yeah, I'm sorry, what? I could never do that. I'm like, what do you mean you could never do that? Of course you could do it. And they're like, no, really couldn't do that, Sonya. No, if my washing machine broke, no, I wouldn't be thinking about hand washing my stuff. No, would definitely not have occurred to me. I would have called someone and said, I need some help. I need my laundry done. My first instinct, I grew up without a washer and dryer, so I know how to hand wash really well. So that's what you do. Like, so it's, but then I think, why am I in that situation? Why do I have to, why am I here again? Is that comfortable for me? No, it really isn't. And that's when change happens. I think that's when change happens.
Well, and I think it's important to note that most of the time it is, at least in our minds, less painful or scary to stay in the unhealthy, comfortable, I suppose, than gravitate towards the unknown, even if we know it's a better decision, right? Because that just seems like it's too scary, and too intimidating, perhaps. So the fact that you knew that something scary and unknown was more comfortable than what you were currently enduring, and it's about a lot more than laundry, right?
Right.
The fact that you knew that you were going to find more comfort and safety in the unknown than you did in the comfort zone, so to speak, is very
Right.
telling.
Yeah, it's hard to explain sometimes. So I hope I'm trying to, I think like, and this relates to us, what story we tell ourselves, right? So, quite a few people will kind of joke with me and say, I'm a MacGyver, right? So I don't know who's going to listen to this podcast, but MacGyver was this guy that could make whatever out of anything, He might be in a real bad jam, but he's got a pen, and that pen's going to do something, like amazing, right? Or a paperclip, right? So people call me MacGyver because, I can make something work out of what appears to be a complete loss or complete, or they say, I want to be stranded on an island with you, because we'd have like the Robin Caruso, like, tree penthouse, because you will make it happen. But it's a great compliment. But at the same time, like, I'm tired of being the MacGyver. I want more than the paperclip. So how do I cherish the story of what helped me be who I am today in this moment, and then also seek the unknown and new so I don't have to have a paperclip to get does that make sense?
It does.
And the
It's
stories are so powerful. They're so powerful. And I don't freak out. I don't freak out with big things happening. I just don't, because I'm really good at it.
yeah.
It's the living in the unknown that I have to consciously still work at and say, what do I really want? And every time I've done it, it's worked out great.
Mm-hmm.
It's worked out amazingly, beyond my even imagination. But it's fighting, it's that fight within, I think, a little bit.
Well, and sometimes being very resourceful or very adaptable um, can be an unfortunate thing that we do, right? Because it in some ways limits us from reaching for what we really deserve, more abundance. And, we can go along with the mindset of, well, I can make this work, or it's not that bad type of thinking when it
Right.
comes to life in general, when it comes to our health or relationships or a job we hate, or our mental health, right? It really can be to our demise in a lot of extreme cases to just be adaptable and resilient in those ways, because we don't see that it's worth it to reach for more or something different that we deserve.
Yes. And I think there was the first, even now, after I had the cancer surgery, and I was still sort of dealing with all that and still trying to figure out just regular life, bills, whatever. Um, I remember going at times thinking to myself, why would putting something digitally online be so scary to you? You just had your breast removed. Let's get some perspective, Sonya. Like, come on, lady. Like, like, what? What? Are you for real right now? Like, and so I kind of use humor to kind of, kind of say like, you're intimidated about that? You're what? You're worried that somebody wouldn't think what you have is valuable? Like, what? Like, let's keep this in perspective. And it really, it also changed in how I communicate with you. And we talked a little bit about this before as well. Like, um, who has stayed in my life, who is, you know, we've backed off of each other, backed up from each other, or completely are not in contact, and it's not full of anger and, ugliness. It's just an acknowledgement that I have to look at things differently. Because I mean, I've had all these surgeries, but I've always said, but at least it wasn't cancer. At least it wasn't cancer. Well, guess what? I have cancer, And so it really made me shift in everything about my perspective, not just my own inner, talk, my own inner self talk, but also I found that I wasn't going to let people just treat me any way they want. They weren't going to just talk to me any way they wanted and expect that I'm just going to sit around and say, oh, yeah, you're right. Or no, that's okay. You didn't call me back the 5 times you said you would. That's okay. I understand. No, I'm done. I'm out. If you got time for people, make time for people. If you don't, you don't. But, just back up your words and your actions. And I had to do the same thing for myself as well. I've always said I don't just do the talk, I do the walk. And so that, for me, it was been very helpful. Not that I think people need to get cancer and wake up, but, and I still think I have a lot to learn and grow from, but it kind of put me on the faster track,
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I did develop the art adventure camp that's never been done in our local recreation department. That was part of that process. That's one example of, why am I afraid to do this? You had cancer. You have one breast. Let's move on. Let's just do the art camp. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? They think you suck. You've been teaching art for almost 30 years. Relax. You're going to be fine.
Yeah. Oh, it's so easy to get in our own heads, though, about all of the ways we think we're not good enough. But something you said a couple moments ago about making sure that you're also holding yourself to a different standard, the
Mhm,
same type of way that, you're not willing to accept how other people treat you, if it
mhm.
isn't feeling good to you, and you needing to like also treat yourself in a way that is uplifting and respectful and loving and nurturing. Tell me what that looked like for you when you decided that you weren't going to essentially live in your excuses of what you weren't doing to take care of yourself anymore.
It really came back to basics. Started with breath. What am I ingesting? I developed a very, very unhealthy relationship with food. And I shared that with you. We talked a little bit about that Big Macs to biking, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, I went to basics. What are my basics? Like, really foundationally, what are my basics? It's like, I draw lots of trees, probably because I'm constantly going back to being grounded and present and strong. And, you know, um, and it was the basic stuff for my body. What am I taking in? And then it was that other layer, right? The other layer of the mental. So it wasn't just the physical of breath and what am I ingesting and how does that make me feel? And why am I eating this? Why am I drinking this? Um, but it became like that next layer of emotional and spiritual and stuff and saying, okay, what am I watching on TV? And why am I drawn to that? You know, I found that I was watching tons of documentaries of people who were extraordinarily resilient and beat the odds. That's not a coincidence, right? I mean, here I
Mhm.
am trying to beat the odds again, and I'm like, and I would just inundate myself with that, or I'd pick up something that was a positive book, or, I'm a big researcher and a big reader. I love reading. And then when I wasn't, I could tell when I was disconnecting from myself, just like when I'm sitting in my car, like I told you about at 10:30 at night, devouring 2 value meals at McDonald's. I mean, why am I there? Right? Like, how am I watching, like, these really sad, horrible, tragic movies? Like, okay, that's okay. There's not a judgment in it. It's just awareness. So that was the other layer, right? Not judging, like, this is where I'm at right now. So let's try to understand that. So I'm feeling broken and I've
Mhm.
got Big Mac juice, whatever that sauce is, all over me. And I'm like, this is me broken. This is what I look like broken. I'm feeling really broken. If I watched a movie that was sad or something and I'm like, or tragic or dark, and I'm like, yeah, because that's a part of me too. And let's
Mhm.
not judge that. So why am I what is sitting in this space trying to, teach me? What do I need to get from this? Because I know I don't want to stay here,
Mhm.
you know. So what do I need to do? Well, part of that healing for me has been to not judge.
Mhm. Right. No, and that makes a lot of sense too, because something you said about what are you consuming? And it has a lot more to do with what you're physically eating in your day-to-day meals, right?
Right,
What your
right.
diet is has to do with not just what's on your physical plate, but what are you watching? What are you listening to? Who are you
Yep.
surrounding yourself with?
Yes.
And what energy are you absorbing from all of those things? And that is all part of your quote unquote diet of life. So when
Yeah.
you are immersed in that,
Yes.
expect to feel like shit, right? But we don't know it when we're in it, we
No.
don't know it. But it's easy to find ourselves in a place of judgment and even just self-judgment of
Oh,
ourselves instead of just giving ourselves some compassion and saying, you know, why am I doing this? Why am I in this part of my life where I feel like these are the things that I need or that bring me comfort or that feel good? What is on a deeper level of that I need to
mhm.
change and shift?
Absolutely. And that can be tough, like part of, I mean, I've gone through so many changes. I mean, I've literally lost everything in the last 2 years, my savings, my credit score, car, jobs. I mean, it's just been one thing, but I've also had so many amazing blessings. I mean, that's the other piece to it for me, is that, and in all of this, part of breathing in is, and trusting what it is that you need to do. I mean, in downsizing, I realized I had over 30 years of stuff. I didn't eat boxes I hadn't even seen in like 6 moves, 6 actual physical geographical moves. I hadn't even opened. And I'm like, and I just remember sitting there for literally almost 7 hours, just throwing these papers in the bonfire, letting go. Don't need it. Letting go. And I was like feeling lighter and lighter and lighter.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very powerful when you are able to, because it can be positive things too. I mean, like some of the things that have helped me now are things that I had already planted seeds on when I was in a good season, like my bike. I don't have a car right now because the last 2 cars, I've spent thousands of dollars and I still don't have a car. So I say to myself, okay, I've got a bike. I bought a bike.
There's that resourcefulness again.
And I was like, I've got a bike. I can bike. So I'm like biking like 24 miles, sometimes 32 miles in a week. I posted it on Facebook. And I am just so happy. I love it. I love my little route. I have a favorite hawk I talked to you about, and butterflies. And I'm just like, oh my God, it reminds me of being a kid all over again. And that freedom of riding a bike and just enjoying what's around you. And so it is resourcefulness, but it also, when we're in good spaces, we're also planting seeds and we don't even know it. So that bike, and this young kid, I work part-time at this grocery store. It's like an upscale grocery store. It's hard to describe. But anyway, this young kid goes, "That's your bike?" And I think it's the cutest bike ever. It's got a cute little basket, which I've always wanted. So I can pick flowers if I want, or
That's
put
right.
my groceries in it. And it's this beautiful turquoisey blue. I just love it. It's actually the exact same colors as my old art studio that I had years ago. The exact same colors. A coincidence? I think not. Anyway, he's like, "That's your bike." And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Oh." And I'm like, "What do you mean, oh?" And he's like, "Well, oh." And I'm like, "Oh?" Like, we're just going. This kid's like 16, maybe. He's like, "Well, I think it kind of looks like a bike from a yard sale." I'm like, "Well, what yard sale are you going to? Because I've never seen a bike this nice at a yard sale." I was like, "Oh my God, for real?" I was like, "Well, this yard sale bike gets me from A to B. And I love it."
Yeah. Little man's got a lot to learn about life.
He's got a
I'll
lot
tell you.
to learn, man. I was like, "Oh, dude." I was like, "A yard sale bike?"
But look what you did. I mean, and that is like kind of that is what I said last time we had a conversation, is you did trade your Big Mac for a bike.
Yes.
And like
Yes, I did.
that is like the surface level description of things that are so much deeper. I mean, you went from just a really broken place and found yourself in a place of healing on so many different levels. And that bike, I feel like, has done a lot more than get you to work every day. That bike has been part of your mental, emotional, spiritual healing.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. I mean, I even bike when I don't have to bike.
Mm-hmm.
And someone said to me the other day, why would you bike? I mean, were you going to work? I'm like, "No, I just wanted to see if I could get to that other place over there." And they were like, "Okay." And I was like, "Yeah." I was really psyched.
Mm-hmm.
I did a whole new route, and they were like, "Okay."
Yeah.
And they were like, I got caught in the rain one day, this really huge downpour. So I found a really nice tree to just, I mean, it was still getting rained on, but not like, you know, bouncing off my body. That's how hard it was. I was enjoying it. And it was just so wonderful. I was so happy because it was so hot and humid that day. And I was just soaked. I was soaked in sweat before it started raining. And then this cool rain, it just felt, oh my God, it just felt like pure heaven to me.
Mm-hmm.
And a friend of mine was like, I would have died. I'm like, from rain? I'm confused. What do you mean you would have died? No, there was no lightning. She's like, no, that's not what I mean. Like, I would have died. Like, okay, you lost me. We're good. Like, I don't
Well,
know
and
what,
honestly, I think,
but
and
that's,
that's a, and that's
but
a,
that's,
yeah, and that's to speak, maybe out of place about the relationship with your friend, but like you do get to a certain point in your own journey and how you have healed and transformed your way of thinking that sometimes you're just not able to connect with people from the previous version of yourself anymore because
yeah,
really like you're not you're not going to live because you're stuck in the rain. Like you would mentally just break down because of that. And now you're in a place where that feels cleansing to your soul, you know,
yeah,
maybe that's not compatible
right,
type of
right.
conversations anymore.
And actually, that kind of brings us back a little bit to our conversation earlier today when we started this around how my relationship with myself started to change after being diagnosed with cancer, but and I started talking about my relationship with other people too, like
Mm-hmm.
how communication. And I've noticed that it happens even at this little part-time grocery space. Like customers can be so condescending and angry, and you know it has nothing to do with you. I mean, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But people leak all over you every day, all day. And they can get aggressive even verbally. And yeah, it's just not pretty sometimes. And you think, wow, like I've even had other customers that are like, Sonya, if that person gives you a hard time, let me know. Because they see it. But when you're not, it's like people can only see what they're seeing. And I don't take crap. I don't care if you're a customer or not. Like, you're
Mm-hmm.
not going to talk to me as if I'm less than human or I'm less than in any way. Like, I'm here. This is my job. If you want to, I'm not going to say it's okay. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like this one guy was really angry at me because he had charged himself the wrong price for the size soup he had. And he was just really sarcastic and and even my supervisor was like right there watching to make sure like everything was going to stay okay. And I let him talk and I stayed professional. And then he started to mock me. And I said, you know, I think it's time to just let's let go of the attitude so you can move on and I can move on. And I just stared at him like, not mean, not just matter of fact,
Just call them out.
just call them out. And it wasn't in a big snide way. It was just like I'm talking to you right now. It's just matter of fact. And I think that that's also been a really empowering thing. And it is hard. You're right, Sarah, that as you start to shift and redefine the version of you that you want out there in the world every day, is it a happy Sonya? Is it a real Sonya? Is it a sad, whatever? Just who Sonya is today, whatever it is, that people that you did have in your sphere drift, or sometimes it's a big boom where it's like you clash and it blows, and then you're like, yep, you're out. And then, I joke a little bit, and it's not, but again, that's my also coping skill is to kind of make light of things. But I literally just go, boop, disconnect, boop, done.
Mm-hmm.
I'm out. I walk away, or I just hit the button. Bye. Don't, we're done. Like, not doing it. Not doing it.
Well, I think that's a level of self-respect that a lot of us have a hard time or take a long time to get to. when we realize that we can teach other people how to treat us, and what we're not willing to accept or not accept.
Right.
I think, what we're willing to tolerate. Like, I think a lot of us go a long time tolerating things from other people that we should never have, right? For one reason or another. But I think it takes us a long time. Many of us, I speak for myself for sure.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a long time to get to a point where, like you're just saying, like, bloop, you're out. Or things implode, like the relationship implodes because um there's just no fixing something sometimes. But what I want to ask you about that pertains to what you're talking about, and how you show up for yourself and how you expect other people to treat you, is something you said in a previous conversation. Everywhere you go, there you are.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important because you are truly all you have.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I learned. Well, even in my relationship with my mom, which was, definitely had its ups and downs, and that nobody can truly save you.
Right.
They just can't. And I see it when I was in, doing my therapy practice. I've seen it when I was doing my holistic health practice. I see it even as an art student. And that's why I like teaching art with kids, is that to teach them to connect with that inner compass now, because as they get older, we start to lose it, right? We start to get swayed by things as we grow, and who we have in our sphere. And just like people say, oh, I can't do it, or I can't draw, I'm not creative, I'm not, that's all just stuff you've picked up along the way, and it's the same thing for self-confidence, self-esteem. And that's why I teach kids, like, art it's not about somebody saying you're the best artist, you're the most amazing artist on the planet. It's how you feel and how it makes other people feel. And I learned that at a very, very young age when I won my first art contest at 9. I did that drawing in like 5 minutes because I was so consumed the whole time they gave us. It was for a logo contest for our town. We lived in a small town in New England, and I sat there the whole time going, I have to, this is a contest. We got to come up with the best logo. Whoever's going to be selected is going to be the winner. And I was like, I spent so much time thinking about it was like I was 9 years old, thinking about how perfect I had to be, how this, and finally, my teacher was like, Sonya, you've got like 5 minutes left. You haven't done like anything. So I got quiet. I didn't know it then, but I breathed. I took a breath in. I saw a paper plate. I drew a circle, and it became a clown face. Now, that was back before, of course, everybody hates clowns now and thinks they're scary and terrifying, but back then they weren't. They were really fun and enjoyable and entertaining. And so I ended up winning. Now, what that experience taught me, and the reason why I won is because the committee that was looking at all the drawings that were submitted, it wasn't because it was the best artistically, it wasn't the most sophisticated artistically. They felt like it had captured the essence of the festival. It was how it made them feel. It made them smile. It made them feel happy inside. It made them think of the sunny day with the carousel and the cotton candy machine. That's
Right.
it. And so when I teach kids now, and this is all pertains to everything we're talking about, if I teach art now, it's about trusting themselves. It's about developing a good, healthy relationship now. I mean, I see kids now already crying and like just losing their minds because they think they did a horrible job or it wasn't perfect. Or I correct them and I say, well, let's try that again.
Yeah.
Because I'm still teaching them art skills. It's not just a free for all. So, and they're so hard. And so I work with them around it, and I help them get through that because they shut down, right? And what what do we see as adults? We do the same thing, right? We turn to all kinds of unhealthy ways, like I did. And we lose sight of ourselves. And so it's true. And it really is the essence of everything. Because if you don't have yourself, it doesn't matter who you're around. It doesn't matter what job you had. I've always said this. I've had no money and lots of money and all the shades in between. But when I've lost connection to myself, all that stuff falls away. Everything. You have nothing to grab onto. You have nothing. And then you find yourself in spots where you're making choices out of fear. You're making choices out of not being grounded, not really trusting yourself. And then you go a day later, 2 years later, where, how the hell did I get here? How did I get here? By the time I had gotten cancer, and after all those surgeries, I was really disconnected.
Well, and you've talked before to me about kind of a deeper understanding of the need for all those surgeries, is that it comes from a place of a lot of those ailments that required those surgeries come from a place of being detached to yourself and a spiritual disconnection within yourself, that contributes to physical ailments.
Yes, and where you hold your stress. I mean,
Right.
when I was surrounded by lots of integrative medicine folks and holistic health folks, we always talked about that the body is a self-healing, self-regulating system. It's always striving to be the best it can be. It's naturally made that way. Think about how amazing our bodies are. I mean, what we do with it every single day. It just blows my mind how amazing and magical this physicalness is that we have, that our bodies deal with so much. And when we're stressed and we're under chronic stress, and when I say stress, I don't mean just because we hate our job or where it could be. It's not just because maybe we're in a bad relationship or bad friendship, whatever. It's an accumulation of where we're holding the tension, right? So like I told you, even looking back, right, our brains don't know what I'm right now in this moment, or if I'm talking about 10 years ago, my brain responds in the same way. And you saw earlier in this podcast interview, I started to, like, as I was talking about how I couldn't catch my breath, it was hard for me to catch my breath. Our bodies don't know the difference physiologically. It just doesn't. So when we talk about this, everywhere, there you are, right? Everywhere you go, there you are. It's so true. And we carry things. And I think that when we get disconnected, it's like I explained to you before, by the time we get to a physical place of dis-ease, we've already lost connection spiritually, emotional, psychologically, right? So we develop all these things along the way, right? We feel like, why the hell am I here? What's the point? Like someone says something bad to us, maybe in childhood, maybe in a relationship later, who knows? And it sticks to us like a little bit of like Velcro. It sticks to us. We may not even notice it. But the next time maybe somebody says something, that little piece gets another little piece stuck to it, right? So maybe as a kid, some kid came up to you in the playground and said, "Gee, Sarah, you have really big teeth." Right? Right? Now,
That's funny.
you might brush it off, you might not, but then, someone else might say something about your teeth. And then all of a sudden we start making these neural connections, and it's like these little threads. And depending on how aware we are and how we decide what story we're going to let these weave is going to determine where it ends up later, right? So for me as a kid, my tension was always in my stomach area. So where have been all those 8 surgeries? My entire digestive system. I
That's
mean,
interesting, isn't it?
even my breast cancer, it was a ductal carcinoma. It was my duct, and it metastasized throughout my entire duct system, like a little highway. So that's all about process, right? Movement. My
Mm-hmm.
colon, part of that having to be removed. Process. But when we are dealing with chronic stress or whatever, and depending on how those threads, this is my body, right? I'm like I'm holding. We're not always conscious of it. We're holding. And that's where the path of least resistance is for dis-ease to pop up.
Mm-hmm.
That's my body. For somebody else's body, it could be somewhere else. You
Right.
know, it could, people develop all kinds of things all the time.
Right.
That's where they hold their stress, or that's where they're holding their whatever, And again, this is not about judgment, it's about awareness. And I still have to focus on my digestive system because I know that's where the path goes, but I have to do it in a much more loving way than
Right.
I hope
But
this
it
is
is, oh, it's
flowing.
totally making sense. It's totally resonating. And I'm quiet and pausing for a moment as I'm just reflecting on the things that you're talking about. And um, for one thing, thinking about my own ailments, right? And just thinking back, we talked about this before in a previous conversation about how as a kid, I had it was basically undiagnosed colitis. There just was all these tests and all these procedures and all these
Mm-hmm.
ways of trying to like figure out, why am I in so much pain in my stomach all the time? Why is this a constant thing? And I was under a lot of stress as a kid, in being in a home with parents who were addicts and or alcoholics, and I was left alone a lot, and there was a lot of just things that I had to deal with that I never should have had to as a young kid. And I fully believe that I internalized that in my gut. And we all know, well, I shouldn't say we all know, many of us know that your gut health is directly related to your mental health. And it took a long time for me to understand that the reason that I was in so much pain as a kid was because I was unwell mentally, and in a critical time of development at that.
Right?
And as I became an adult and addressed some of those issues, the pain went away and it's never come back.
Yeah.
And those things are connected. And I think a lot of us just take it for granted that, you know, our bodies are intertwined. Everything from our physicalness to our spiritualness, it is all part of what makes us work or not work day in and day out.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I think that's why I did running for so many years as well, is because it just worked for me for so
Mm-hmm.
long to make those mind body spirit connection.
Yes.
It really did. And I um I learned a lot. I know when we have talked in the past, I talked a lot about that journey of having stomach issues. And I always had stomach, I just thought it was life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that we just have these stomach issues. Even when things were great, I'd still have stomach issues because my body, I had so unconsciously trained my body to take whatever I was experiencing into my gut. And so it wasn't even something I was truly aware of until someone in the late 80s had given me that book by Louise Hayes called You Can Heal Your Life. And I thought, what a bunch of hokey pokey bullshit is this? Like, I am whole. I love myself. And looking, I was like, what the? I was like, oh my God. But, I was also kind of desperate because at some point I had gone to the doctor while I was I think, a sophomore in college. And I was like, I got to do something about this stomach. And he was like, got a little bit of my history and was like, yeah, I don't know what's happened exactly in your life or what you're doing exactly now, but I can tell you right now, you're on the fast track for an ulcer or something more serious. And it freaked me out. I mean, I was like, what, 19, almost 20. I was like, what? And so I picked up this book that I've been carrying around with me, and I really did it. I really started to do more meditation, and I was much more mindful again about my body, listening to it, like eating a bunch of French fries versus eating some fresh vegetables. How does that make me feel? I started to really make those connections, and like you said, it went away, and it went away for a long time. It would come back intermittently, but I would just go right back to the meditation and connection. And yeah, so it works. It works when you are connected. You will heal, I mean, but you got to listen.
Right.
And you got to be willing to stick up for yourself and advocate for yourself, wherever you are, no matter what role you are, no matter what role you play. I had some 19-year-old supervisor person at work get in my face about something. And I literally just said, I'm backing away. I'm taking space. I called my supervisor and I told her, I'm leaving because I'm not going to be talked to that way. And I left. It doesn't matter to me. And if I do tolerate something, I ask myself, why am I tolerating that? And even if it's my own self-talk, why am I doing that? Why am I talking to myself like that?
Right.
It's not going to get you anywhere. It's not going to make you feel better.
Well, and that question all the time of, would you be your own friend if you talk to your friends the way you talk to yourself? I think a lot of us would say no.
No, absolutely.
Which that's eye-opening, I mean, really and truly, like, again, everywhere you go, there you are. So make sure that you are treating yourself really well, if not the best out of anybody else around you, because again, that truth that at the end of the day, we are all we really have in this world. And that seems scary and harsh to say, but it's true. Things end, people leave, people die, things happen. And there is no guarantee that you have anybody in this world other than you at all times. And that feels scary for sure, but it's truth.
I think so, but I think this also connects to resilience, right? So, I mean, we are talking about, not staying in broken places, and we're talking about, but that requires resilience too, not just resourcefulness, not just knowing how to make a paperclip into something else, but it is also about resilience. And one of the things that I don't see a lot working with kids is resilience. They don't know how to, like, even the baby boomers, right? I mean, they learned a lot about resilience. They were around their parents that were having to overcome war and poverty and so many things. Everybody was kind of in the same boat in many ways, not obviously everybody, but they learned a lot about resilience and about, keep going. But as our society gets faster, I think, and the more things are so instantaneous for our kids, it's hard for them to build resilience. But the resilience is what keeps you going. And for me, a connection to something higher than me, right? We talked about this, about God or spirit, whatever you want to call it, in that regard, I don't feel alone. Like, it can be scary, but for me, a connection to source outside of me that's much bigger than our human level,
right,
is something that also has been the real big thing for me, is to say, like, and all likelihood is what also made me immediately going, fuck this, I'm not gonna die. I'm not done yet. There's something greater than me. and that knows that I need to be here. And I know I need to be here. And it's not to, earn $1 million. That's not, I mean, that'd be great, but no, that's not my purpose, So, and I think that when we talk about everywhere you go, there you are, it's also about showing up the way you want to be to people. So if I do get somebody that I encounter, whether it's I'm in a store shopping or I'm working with somebody in customer service, and they're just kind of leaking all over me, and I know it's not about me, if the majority of the people, like I've had it's such a good social experiment working in retail, because you really see where people are at, it's such a great thing. I've had parents that I've had to kind of give mini parenting coaching and back them up as their kids are melting down, or somebody that's just crying. I've had people come through the line crying. They just had a breakup, and they're they're sitting there with all these little tiny bottles of liquor, and I'm looking at them and I'm like, not judging, just there are where they're at. Or somebody that comes in and you could tell they've had a really painful day, and you can see the limping or the whatever, or you see everything. And so when I go, I try to just, everywhere you go, there you are, I try to be the best version of myself I can, knowing that I know no matter what, whether someone got in my face on Friday night, very aggressive, nothing to do with me.
Mm-hmm.
Another person came through and like, oh my God, you're just an angel. Has nothing, none of that has anything to do with me.
Right. But I think both of those people are in very different places in their own journeys to show up differently. But where you are is also significantly different, because you are able to really just see them as humans and know that there is something going on within their life that is something that is really hard, probably, and knowing that it has nothing to do with you, and being able to meet them where they are in a compassionate way, whether it is sternly saying like, we're going to stop with the attitude, or whether it is, just being in a good conversation with somebody calling you an angel.
Right.
you are able to meet them right where they're at, because
Mm-hmm.
you are in such a better place yourself.
Oh yeah, I mean, I had one day, I love elderly people. I just love them. Yes, it can be annoying. They can be slower. They can sometimes snap at you. But in general, I just love elderly people. I just adore them. And I had two people in one day hug me. They were just so grateful that I helped them with self-checkout. It's like, and it's like, I know that if I'm showing up and at least conscious enough to say I want to be the best that I can be today. There are days I know something feels off. Like I'm off. I'm feeling bitchy. I got really pissed off one day about some stupid olives. And I'm like, what is this about? Why am I just going off about this? About olives? And then I said to my coworker, I'm like, well, she's lying. This woman's lying. She's just trying to get a refund. It's ridiculous. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like sitting there listening to myself. And I'm like, why does it matter that she is lying about olives? What is it? And I was like, oh, because I don't like people who lie. I don't like people who try to get something from you and cut a corner and try to, make it about you. You're the problem. Oh, right. So this went deep. We started out with olives, right? But this is the beauty of being everywhere you go, there you are, because you always have an opportunity if you are willing to show up and you're conscious enough at any point in time to say, okay, this isn't really about olives.
Yeah. It reminds me of a time I was late teens, early 20s, and I worked at Blockbuster Video. You remember Blockbuster Video?
Yeah. I'm Blockbuster.
And I obviously did not know anything about what I know now in life for sure. And there was this one particular customer that would come in and just work that system constantly to try to like get out of late fees or get a
Yeah.
refund for something. And I can just remember getting just so irritated. And my manager at the time walked up next to me and went ahead and just punched in the information to give the customer like what they wanted. And he looks over at me. He's like, "Hey, this is, it's not like it's money out of, it's not your money. Like, it's okay. Like, I don't know why you're getting so worked up about $1.99 situation. And, like, just, it's not worth you getting upset about." And I just remember that to this day thinking, not knowing at the time, but like knowing now when I think back on it, like what a place of control I felt like I had to be in to fight over like $1.99 that wasn't even my own money.
Right. Right.
And it's just that like it goes back to what we said about just it's an awareness. Everything you do every day is an awareness. And one of the things that I really love about what you're doing, Sonya, in your own awareness is
Mhm.
finding so much purpose within your pain. I'm a big believer in that is just necessary in order to be able to continue forward on the journey when there has been so much pain. Talk to me about what you are doing in terms of not staying in broken places.
That's a big one. I think it's a lot of things that we talked about. I think it really does require you to show up for yourself. Like you said, would you talk to a friend that way?
Mhm.
Would you treat your friend that way? Would you you wouldn't. You just wouldn't. And I've already had enough people that have not been nice to me in my life. I don't need to be mean to myself. I mean, we're really the only ones we're with 24/7, right? I mean, nobody is with me as much as myself. I mean,
Right?
if you want to say God or universe, whatever, that too. But when we're talking about a human level, nobody is with you the most except for yourself,
Mhm.
24/7.
Right.
So, I want to try to make it a nicer experience because I said I wanted to live and I said I wasn't done yet. And
Mhm.
I said that I wanted to keep showing up and I wanted to keep things in perspective. And these are sort of commitments that I've made for myself. And so when I get to that place, even if I just binge watch Netflix for 7, 8 hours throughout a day, not judging that, but just again asking myself, why was that important today for you?
Mhm.
I'm overwhelmed. Just like I asked myself, why am I sitting here with Big Mac juice all over my face? What am I doing? Like, it's like asking, like you would in a very hopefully nice way to a friend. If you saw your friend doing something that you knew was harmful, they knew was harmful on some level, right? You'd say, hey, hello, just checking in on you. Like we
Just
do
the
our
way you
team.
asked that question, though, why was that important for you today?
Yeah.
I love that. I love how you worded that.
Yeah, why is this important right now? Because you know what? I don't even want to friggin' deal with how much money I owe, how much debt I'm in. I just can't. I can't today. I'm not going to today. It's not, I
Mhm.
don't even, I'm trying to also look at that sense of helplessness because it's such a low energy. So I try to also be mindful of that and say, okay, it's okay to say I can't. Nothing, I'm trying to get rid of the whole like everything's wrong or this is the right choice and this is the wrong
Mhm.
choice. Like, I'm trying to just honor what I know is a good choice for me in this moment. This is all I know. I only know what I know, right? I only
Mhm.
know what I know. I might see it differently tomorrow or 2 weeks from now or 2 years from now. Who knows, right? I try
Mhm.
not to look at things as right or wrong or good
Right.
or bad. I try to look at them as just they are what they are. This is what I'm doing the best today. This is where I'm at
Mhm.
right now today. Like, people are like, well, why can't you just get a car? Yeah, I could probably get a car. I could probably get another used car, probably a car that may or may not, I might luck out, whatever. I don't know. I, I could get a loan that I don't like, that's higher APR. I don't want that. whatever, monthly interest, whatever you call it. Yeah, there's lots of ways. But for some reason, it feels really right to be riding my bike. I can't, like, people are like, some people look at me, not even a judgmental way, but they're like confused. And I'm like, I know it doesn't make any logical sense, but it just feels right. Like, I'm supposed to ride this bike. I'm supposed to be riding my bike right now. And I don't know what my next step. I just know it's going to work out. Things always work out one way or the other. I'm not just sitting here doing nothing, but I'm also not pushing it because it doesn't feel like the right answer. Like, I just need to pause and breathe because I know when I do that, it's going to be right. So I hope that answers your question. How am I not staying in broken places? I think it's breathing. It's doing all these things we talked about and keeping to the commitments that I said already out loud. I want to be the best version of myself, wherever that is. Like, I own my stuff. I know when I'm being bitchy. I know where I'm being over the top. And the healthier I feel, in some ways, the easier it gets. Because I'm not caught up in all that stuff, all that noise of good, bad, right or wrong. I'm just doing the best I can, and someone will say, well, here's another really great example. Before we got on our call, not only was I sweaty because, and I had to take a shower before we got on this call, was because my whole house is pretty much in disarray right now, completely. Like, this is probably the only little tiny section. There's stuff everywhere because I paused and I was like, I really don't like the feeling of my physical space. And it's really bothering me. I can't create. I can't. And for me, not to create is like losing oxygen. If I'm not writing, if I'm not drawing, if I'm not doing something that's creative, it's like I can't breathe. And I meditate a lot. I keep asking for guidance, right? And I get one word. I've had the same word for 4 or 5 months, and the word is create. I'm like, I know. I have to create. I know. I'm trying to get stuff online, and I'm like, blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden, it was like, I had this huge moment. I'm going to get goosebumps all over. And the word create, instead of reacting like, I know, like I could make this bracelet, I could do, I was like, oh, create the space. Create the space. Oh.
Wow.
And so I sold my couch today. And I said, hey, to my neighbor, I immediately called up my neighbor. I'm like, they have kids. They need a bigger couch. I want this couch out. I just bought this couch 3 years ago. It's a very nice couch. I wonder if they have a futon. So I call. I said, I got this couch. I know it fits in your space. You have a futon by any chance? Yeah, we got a futon. We don't want our futon. Done. Tomorrow morning, boom, done. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait for this space to change. And then I was like, and now it's just, I have a whole plan. I'm radically changing my physical space, and it's going to open everything up.
It's going to open so much mental space.
It is. And it's like, and I know it's right because for me, I get goosebumps all over. That's my affirmation of, oh, create the space. Goosebumps. Win. It's been that way my whole life. So that's my signal. Everybody's got to figure out their own signal, what, they feel. But that's when everything starts to feel like it's in alignment. It's like, oh, right. So I was like, why am I not unpacking these 3 boxes? They're just at the, why? It makes me feel miserable every time I look at these boxes. And then I go, oh, because it's another 20 years of memories. I don't want to go down that road. So now I'm like, okay, just pick out the files. You've had these boxes sitting here for 3 years, and how many moves? there's nothing in there that you obviously need. Like,
Right.
then all of a sudden I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'll just bring him to the fire pit. Boop, done. I've already pulled out the files that I needed.
Yeah. That had to
Exciting.
feel so good. I'm a big believer in like a physical purging of things in order to gain more mental clarity. I do it, I mean, at least like once a month, I'm walking out of here with like bags to Goodwill or something, or
Oh,
I mean, going through people's stuff and I'm like, oh, you don't need that. You don't need this. It's amazing to free yourself of things. I'm sure I drive people in my house crazy doing that, but because it's not always my stuff, I'll be honest. I'm like, you don't need that stuff. But it is a lot of my stuff. And when you get rid of all those things that are like, why do you need stuff sitting in a basement for 10 years? And like you said, moving unopened boxes from place to place to place for what? What is in there that you need? It is so draining mentally.
just seeing that box.
Yeah.
And you know, it's funny because I think there's a show, I can't remember what it's called. I think it's related to feng shui, which I used to do years ago too. I started getting into the study of that. But this woman, she has this thing which I forget to do. You hold an object, right? You hold here's an old paint jar, right? I have this thing about jars. I have a thing of I might need it just in case issue. I have that issue.
Oh, gosh,
I have
yes.
hundreds of jars. Anyway, so she does this thing with people and they say, hold it. How does it make you feel?
Mm-hmm.
So that's been another thing for me as I've been purging, because they also say in the philosophy, like if you have a cluttered closet, you have a cluttered house, that's a representation of what it's feeling like inside. It's feeling cluttered inside. If you were
Mm-hmm.
surrounded by clutter and things and stuff, and it's not making you feel good, that's a representation of what's happening inside. My house with the clutter, the stuff that I've been purging and purging for 6 months has been representative of all the things that have accumulated, right? All these things I've been holding on to. They didn't even realize I was holding on to because I hadn't looked in the box.
Right.
I've gotten rid of like I got rid of my dining room table, right? People, it was a beautiful hand carved table. It's beautiful. Well, it was from my first husband. It was our third wedding anniversary gift to each other. It doesn't feel good.
I
It doesn't,
wish the listeners could see the face you're making right now.
like, it does not feel good. It's a beautiful table. Gone.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my, I'm getting goosebumps again. Like this couch. It's a nice couch. I'm getting some money for it. I need the money, but it feels so good. It's
Yeah.
like, poof, easy, right? No, we have to be willing to answer that call. But we have to be willing to hear the answer.
Yes, that's what it is right there. You have to be willing to hear it and not just hear it, but then act on it,
Act
do
on it.
something about it.
Yeah. Like I am like on a roll. Like I can't wait. Like my son is gonna freak out when he sees what my ultimate plan is gonna look like. And it's not gonna be orthodox, like what other people think.
Uh-huh.
But it's like something is not fitting right. And this is keeping me stuck.
Mm-hmm.
It's keeping me stuck. And I don't want to be stuck. Full circle, the discomfort and what I know, right? That discomfort, which doesn't feel good to
Mm-hmm.
have all this stuff unpacked, not
Yeah.
even though that's comfortable because I sort of know what may be in there. That's comfortable, right? But it's become more uncomfortable to not let it go. I have to let it go. If I don't let it
Mm-hmm.
go, it's so much more uncomfortable.
Right.
I'm no longer comforted by the discomfort, if that makes sense, right? I
It
mean, it's not
does.
comfortable to have clutter that lends to discomfort. But you know, I know that stuff. I've been carrying it around, right? I can be in that space, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I don't let it go, it's going to feel worse. I don't want
Mm-hmm.
to feel worse. We're always moving to what we don't want to feel bad about, right? That's why we
Mm-hmm.
stay stuck. We're always trying to look for what's going to make us feel better. So that's why a lot of times like people say, well, you know, I had this dream, it didn't happen. but we hold on to the dream for some reason. Why? We're comfortable in that dream that never happened. What is that story? I don't know. But then we go, wait a minute, this is worth the risk. This is making me feel better. We always are trying to move, whether it's where we want to be or where we say we don't want to be, if that makes sense. I think we learned a little bit of this in the group that we were in when we talked about pain points. And I think we've talked about pain points a little bit. Mm-hmm. Even if like a pain point is something, if we know the pain point, like I can sit in literally a tremendous amount of physical pain. Mm-hmm. I know it intimately. I know I can survive it because I've survived it. I can tolerate it. I can do all those things. But it's really not healthy.
Right.
Right. So we have to, I know it is, it's a contradiction, right? Because we're saying, why are we doing this thing that causes us pain? Or we know it's not good for us. We do it because we're familiar with it. We understand it. Mm-hmm. It's easier for me to push it off. It's easier to push it off. I know that pain. I know the physical pain. I know the emotional pain. Why do people stay in relationships that cause them tremendous pain? That doesn't make any sense, right? Logically, it makes no sense. Mm-hmm. Well, they know it. Why do people stay in abusive relationships? They know it. They know the cycles. They know the patterns. They don't like it. Doesn't feel good. When people decide to leave an unhealthy relationship, an abusive relationship, is when the pain point shifts. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense.
And it's the same thing when we're talking about eating, right? Because eating makes me just as happy as having a couple of glasses of wine, sometimes way better. I love turkey gravy and mashed potatoes and stuffing all together. Love it. I could eat buckets when I'm in a discomfort place that I know very well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know it makes a lot of sense. It makes absolute perfect sense of everything that you're describing and talking about. The way that we try to numb ourselves, or ignore the bigger issues by bringing in the ways that we just find respite, I guess, or can avoid the issue for longer. And ultimately, we know inside our minds that is not what's going to get us to a place of fulfillment or happiness any sooner by trying to numb that or delay, by choosing to stay if it's unhealthy, or choosing, an unhealthy way of coping. And yet we do, because in the moments it feels just easier, just less painful. But we do know that cumulatively it becomes even more painful the longer we do that.
Yeah, one of the things that scares me is that I'm going to fall back into being unconscious.
That's a great way to say it, by the way. Falling into being unconscious. And I think when we hear that word in our society, we think of like a head injury, right? But unconscious means just going through the motions mundanely in a way that is unintentional and unproductive for our purposes.
Yeah. And I've asked myself, how many more surgeries? What else can you possibly get? Well, there's plenty to cut out, but I have had to say, I don't want anything else to be cut off. Like, that doesn't even include like when I've been ungrounded and broken my toes. It doesn't include the times I've fallen, stabbed myself with a knife because I'm so ungrounded. I'm not paying attention and having, I'm just, so I am so much more conscious than I was. I mean, we can't be 100% conscious all the time. We just can't. I mean, that's not realistic, but we can certainly be aware, which then becomes just the way we are. Like, And when I'm in those places, you'll know, because you'll have people going, gosh, how do you know that? How did you see that? I didn't see that. How did you see that? Like, because now it's routine that I'm
Mm-hmm.
aware. Biking makes me have to be very aware.
Mm-hmm.
I have to be aware just by shifting my head if there's a car coming close or not,
Mm-hmm.
watching the sky, watching the way the wind's blowing, watching all kinds of things. You have to be very present. I mean,
Right.
one of the most ungrounding things that we do is drive. How many
Oh,
times people going, how many times have you heard and maybe even said to yourself, God, I don't even remember getting home.
right. Yes, that is terrifying.
Where were we?
Mm-hmm.
Where is the most ungrounded thing in the world? So when we do these things, that we want to be connected, and that has been one of my fears, is being unconscious again, and then finding something.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I had my first major surgery that started this decade of surgeries, I was still running. I was swimming. I was living in the South. It was beautiful. I mean, you have all this time to not like where I am in the Midwest, where you have these little pockets of the year that you can really do a lot of things outside that feel good because it's cold here in the winter. Um, and I had a football-sized tumor. I was running sometimes 20 miles a week, swimming, and I had a football-sized tumor.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until I collapsed and I physically could not get myself up, which, by the way, happened 3 times in 5 months. I could not get up without help. I was in so much abdominal pain. And yeah, I'm afraid of becoming unconscious.
So one thing I want to hear from you about, and we haven't mentioned it yet, is you are a published author already.
Mm-hmm.
And you had
Yeah.
made mention in a previous conversation about putting more into words in the thought of not staying in broken places and making that into a book in the future.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. Actually, it's funny because I published that book after I had left my second marriage, which was really abusive. And it was so healing. And the book is about resilience. I
Yeah.
didn't even know it because that book had been in the process for 7 years prior. I mean, that book had seen me through so many different phases of life. So the original story shifted than my first and early manuscripts, my first drafts. So what I find interesting is that it's a fictional series about women, but it's really about a family, a women in a family that are very resilient. And it reminds me of the women in my own family that struggled with things and were resilient. And I think people always like stories about resilience. And I think the concept of, I had heard that phrase, not staying or don't stay in broken places. I think that is the essential core to like resilience, because I've met people that are stay in broken places, and it's sad. I can't
Mhm.
stay in broken places. I have definitely had my moments where it feels so dark and so sad and so lonely and so crushing. But there's a space inside of me. I don't know what you want to call it, a life spark, a little spark, or whatever. I think everybody has it. I believe everybody has it. Even the worst people, I think, have it for a very, very, very long time. And I think it only kind of extinguishes when, I don't know when that when point is for everybody. There's just a line internally that you can't come back from. because you've lost that inner connection or that connection to something higher. So for me, I think, like I said earlier in this interview, that I will watch documentaries about resilience. And so I think we can't get enough stuff about resilience. And whether it's a fictional novel, because I need to finish the other two books, I've had the second book written pretty much. I just can't seem to quite hit the ending that I want, that feels right. But again, I trust it's going to happen when it's supposed to happen, and it will just click, because that's the way it works with me. But I think that writing, even if it's something small about not staying in broken places, is powerful, because we can get consumed by feeling broken. When I look at all the scars on my body, and if I allow myself, I will stay in a broken space. And it literally feels awful. And I don't want to feel awful.
Yeah.
So I can't stay there. I won't stay there. I can't. I physically feel like I can't.
Right.
And so I really want to put so much more out there. And even like the art that I create is to help people it's to help them feel something of light. It's about a feeling, right. When people see my art, that's what they always say. It just makes me feel good inside, or that makes me remember like what it was like to, when I was a kid and we used to be, I draw a lot of things about nature, or they say, oh, that just reminds me of how I used to doodle, or that reminds me of, those carefree moments. And so there it is. It's not the most technically perfect painting you'll see. I'm not trying to be that. I'm trying to evoke a feeling, and so everything that I create, I hope, is adding light.
Well, it is, no doubt. I mean,
I really do.
You're adding light every day in everything that you're doing and the way you're showing up, and this conversation, even like what you've brought to the conversation today has just illuminated a lot of my own thoughts, and I'm sure just the thoughts of our listeners. And I'm so thankful for your willingness to be here today and your time you've shared with me. And I, for one, I'm really looking forward to whenever that book materializes in whatever form it takes, whether it is, long or short, digital or handheld, whatever it is. I will be paying attention to when that comes out for sure. And this has just been a great conversation, and I've loved it.
Oh, I'm so glad. It's sometimes it's so hard to like find the words to describe what you do or why you do it or how you came to do it. I think it can be challenging, I mean, we have our little Cliff Note versions of how we get here, and but it's hard to kind of put all that together and say, okay, this is me, because certainly there are people that have seen me in really bad spaces, very broken places, to play off of that. And I've always been so grateful for those people that stay after those broken moments in those places. People have, and I think coming back to, that was the best version of myself in that moment.
Yeah.
And just having the space also to remember that other people are often in broken places too. And to try to hold the space while still honoring yourself is something that we can all learn from.
100%. Sonya, this has been beautiful. Thank you so much for your time. Everything you said was just so on point and so relevant and resonating to carry on. So,
well, it'll be fun to share how things keep evolving too, because that's the miracle too of this process. The beauty of it can be the beauty and the miracle of it is going, wow. When I was talking to Sarah on July 30th, 2024, we were talking about not staying in broken places, and look at where I am now. And there'll be probably another reflection, I'm sure, many, about how I got to the next place. So
So this time next year, we should do this again
yes,
and
yes,
see what has changed, what has evolved.
yes,
I love
yes.
that.
Between, I'll definitely leave you some crumbs.
Yes, I will be watching and following that crumb trail along the way. Sonya, thank you so much. I've loved
Thank you.
this. I enjoy you so much, and I'm just so grateful to be connected with you.
Thank you, Sarah. I feel the same, very much so.